Shalom to all my brothers and sisters throughout the world. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Gary. That was my given name since I was a baby. And right now, I just started a ministry called King and Priest based on Revelation chapter 1, verse 6. And I understand that, so therefore, I'm trying to convey that understanding to you right now, brothers and sisters. And my Hebrew names, which I'm trying to get back to my Hebrew roots, okay? My name right now is Yasha, which means Jehovah protects. Shalom again, brothers and sisters, right? Whom you have been taken from the promised land. First, the 10 northern tribe of Israel, around 720 BC. Then Judah and Ephraim, who has been taken to Babylon. We have been enslaved, now free, still oppressed, right? To the Hebrew that are coming out of the slumber, this channel and its message are for you. It's also for anyone who's looking for unconventional and unconforming truth. This channel is also for those who are tired, not afraid to eat meat, they're tired of drinking milk, wants to eat meat now. This channel is also for you. When we came out of Egypt, right, Jehovah made a covenant with us. And he said, if you would obey my laws, I'll make of you a kingdom of priests. We find that in Exodus chapter 19, verse 5 and 6. He reads, now, therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be, right, my treasure, possession among the people of all people, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the people of Israel. That was what God gave to Moses, right? He told Moses to tell the Israelites, us, that what he's going to do with us. He's going to make us a kingdom of priests. What does that mean? It simply means we will be Melchisedek or Melchizedek in Hebrew, right? So we will show all the hidden places where Jehovah talks about Melchisedek, and so you can understand, the order that we are under right now. Everybody talks about Melchizedek right now, and even when I was in church Christianity, okay, they couldn't explain exactly what Melchizedek means, or if they did know why, or they didn't give me the real meaning of Melchizedek, because that would imply that I won't need a pastor, I won't need a priest, I would not need a rabbi, so I only need Yeshua, the Son of God, which I'm supposed to follow. Right? So this is the thing that I'm going to be attempting to do right now to explain what Melchizedek is. Right? David, okay, who was was from the tribe of Judah, and he came and wrote the 24 order of the service temple, right? The Levitical priesthood. And David also wrote Psalm 110, right? Prophesying about the Messiah, right? And we're going to read that later on as we go further in this study. Okay, so now the question we ask ourselves: why David, was not a Levi, right? Wrote the 24 orders that will, preside, what the priests and Levites would do in the service temple, right? So, which means David himself understood what Melchizedek was, right? And that's why, when I read that, right, I says, what? There's a lot of, other hidden places, like the word is mentioned in terms of the signification of the word, right? And then not the word itself or the Melchizedek itself, right? So we find one of the order, the 24 orders that David wrote in Luke chapter 1, verse 8 and 9, right, to Zechariah, right, the father of the last high priest, which baptized the king of Melchisedek, okay, which was Yeshua himself, right? Now, we're going to go back and attempting to show again where Melchizedek first mentioned. It was first mentioned in the book of Genesis chapter 14, verse 18 and 19. And we read, okay? Genesis, let me repeat those places for you, those reference, so you can go and check it yourself. And then once you understand that, right, if you have any questions, so I'll put my email address. I will tell you my email address, like, at the end. So this is the operation of a low budget right now that we're attempting to do, right? And it's not that fancy yet, so I can write all these reference and at the bottom of the screen so you can see them yourself. But I can repeat them, twice, all right? So you can get that, and then you can even pause the video also and go and search and research for yourself. What I'm asking you also, not to take everything that I said as a gospel truth, right? But challenge it, go ahead and research it yourself, because this channel also, we go after other books beside the Bible, just so we can understand better what the Bible is saying, right? Because we have to leave things in their context, read things in the context, and also in the culture where it comes from, okay? So that's why I'm inviting you also to do the same. Genesis chapter 14, verse 18, we read, okay? Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was the priest of God, or Jehovah Most High. And he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abraham, right, of God, of the Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, right? So that's the first time Melchizedek was mentioned. So the thing is, when I was in church, when I asked, who was that guy, that Abraham met with, many people, from my church says, oh, this is God himself. Because when they said, and when they read in Hebrew, when they said Melchizedek didn't have a genealogy, he has no mother, no father, right? So they just assumed that it was God, right? But not so. Because the Bible informs us in the book of Joshua. It said, go read the book of Joshua, which is mentioned in two places in the Bible. It's Joshua chapter 10, verse 13, and also Samuel 1, verse 18, right? So they talk about Timothy in it too, but Timothy, when you check, is not in there, all right? But those two places, the Bible, advised us to go and read the book of Joshua, right? And the book of Joshua amplifies the story that you see in Genesis. And in the book of Joshua mentioned that Melchizedek that Abraham met with was Shem, the direct descendant, one of the sons, three sons of Noah. All right? And David, like we said, okay, wrote later the Psalm 110. That's what he says in there. 110 verse 1 and 4. He says, the Lord, Jehovah, said to my Lord, Jehovah, right? Sit at my right hand till I make your enemy, your footstool. Jehovah, the Lord, has sworn and will not relent. You are my priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. Right? So, as we said before, Melchizedek or Melchizedek is an order, as the Levitical priesthood also is an order. But the one that we have from that existed with the Levite, it was something that God gave them temporarily, because God knows that the one that He was trying to get us into, okay, the one that we agree upon was the king and Melchizedek, right? Since we have disobeyed God, 40 days later after, God has sprinkled or the covenant with blood. So it was a blood covenant, basically. So we broke that covenant. So God was going to destroy us. And then, Moses interfered. And God says, you know what? From now on, I'm going to take an animal, the blood of an animal, a clean animal in your place until the Messiah come, until the prophet, which I'm going to send to you, unto Moses. That's what, in the Acts of the Apostle, that's what is being repeated there. I'm going to send in Hebrew also is being repeated. I'm going to send in a prophet like unto Moses that you must listen to, which is Yeshua. Okay? So no one else. Now, according to Hebrew chapter 5, verse 8 and 10, this is what we read about Melchizedek. Though he was the son, he learned obedience by the things which he suffered. And having been perfected, right? He had been perfected in that priesthood. He became the author of eternal salvation to all who obey him. Called by God or Jehovah as high priest according to the order of Melchizedek. Right? Peter, one of the 12 disciples, the one you would call him, one of the 12 apostles, basically, not disciple. Yes, he was an apostle and disciple. So the term, they use them interchangeably nowadays, but they each have a different meaning. In apostles, what apostles means sent one in Greek, okay? But the disciple means a follower of a leader, okay? So Peter was an apostle and a disciple at the same time, right? So what's the difference? Peter was one of the 12 who was with Yeshua from the beginning of his ministry. Even beyond that, because we have other books that nowadays that talk about Peter that was living, that grew up with Yeshua, basically, right? And in the book, the Super Gospel shows you Peter is it's kind of like related to Joseph as just one of the sons of Joseph or something like that, right? But we're not going to go to that right now. But let's just focus on Melchizedek. But just to show you, Peter was there in the beginning based on what we have in the Bible. He was there with the beginning in the beginning of Yeshua's ministry. As soon as Yeshua came out of the desert after 40 days of fasting, John said, "This is the Lamb that takes away the sin of the world," right? And then John was there, right? John was a disciple of John, and then he went and looked for the other guys, Peter and all, right? And James, he said we have found the Messiah, and then since then they've been attached to Yeshua, right? Now he was there with Yeshua from the beginning. So Peter wrote, but that's 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 9. But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, or his own special people, that you may proclaim the praise of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. That's what Peter is saying about Melchizedek. We are a royal priesthood. They understood also, the Melchizedek, order. And that's what they know they were called for. So that's why you see there were no, since the death of Yeshua, right? There were no sacrifice being made for any sin because they know they're no longer under the Levitical priesthood, right? James also, one of the apostles, okay, wrote also, if you really fulfill the royal law according to the scripture, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. You do well. That's what James said. Now, in Deuteronomy, okay, in Galatians, right, established the difference between two kinds of laws, right? When Paul mentioned in Galatians, we're no longer under the law, okay? So if whoever do something about the law is under the curse of the law. He was not talking about the law of the covenant. They got two laws: the law of the covenant and the law for the sacrifice. Okay, so the law for the sacrifice, were temporary, but the law of the covenant, were until, we could say, eternal, until Yeshua come, because Yeshua said in Matthew chapter 5, right? As long as the world or heaven and earth exist, there will not be an iota or a letter that will come out of the law until all is fulfilled, right? So heaven and earth still exist. So therefore, the law that God gave us in the covenant still exists, right? So it's people who are twisted, who are looking for a way out, a license to sin. They say this is the law that people trying to obey. For instance, what you should eat, what the ritual, how to prepare your meat, not to eat with blood. They will say like, no, these things are done away with. No, not so, my brothers and sisters. These are still valid. These are still things we must do in order for us to become Zadok, right? In order for us to become the king and the priest that Yeshua invite us to be. All right. In the book of Revelation, right, chapter 1, verse 6, we have the meaning of the word Melchisedek, right? So not the word itself, we have the meaning. That's why he says in the chapter 6, he says, and he has made us king and priest. King and priest means Melchisedek. He has made us Melchisedek to his God and Father. To him be glory and dominion forever and ever. Hallelujah. Right? In Revelation chapter 5, verse 10 also, same thing is being repeated. And he had made us king and priest, or he had made us, or Melchisedek, to our God. And we shall reign on earth with him. Okay? We shall reign on earth. Now, these are the things like, those places and many more are mentioned in the Bible. Okay? When you read the book, the book of for the Hebrew, right? All what Paul was trying to do, okay, was trying to juxtapose the order of Melchizedek and also the order of Levitical priesthood that no longer exists, right? That's the difference that Paul was trying to establish. So those of us who, right now who are awakened, okay, we will know that we're part of the kingdom of Jehovah, right? What does that mean? We become king and priest. In order for you to go to be part of that kingdom, you have to become king and priest according to the book of Revelation. Okay? So, yes, it is very important that you understand this subject. And we know that Peter talks about Noah being the 8 preachers of righteousness, which is like, the 8th preacher of Melchizedek. So who was the first one then, right? So let's just read Peter chapter 2, verse 5. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 5. He says, and spare not the whole world, but save Noah, right? The 8th person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the whole, upon the world of the ungodly. So Peter was trying to tell you, Noah was the righteous one at that time. God chose him, to preach, to help other people to come to him. But, people were so inbred in their own life, they were mocking Noah while he was building, the ark. So it's 120 years doing this, but yet, none of them were saved. Only 8 people were saved, plus Noah, was the 8th one. Now, Noah was the righteous one among them, right? God used him, and then, now, after the flood, God started over with this family. So now, who was the first Melchizedek? Adam was the first one, right? Seth was the second one. Enos was the third one. Canaan was the fourth. Malalel, right, was the 5th. Jared was the 6th. Enoch was 7th. Noah, right? Methuselah, but Enoch it was taken. Basically, Methuselah come in the 7th place, basically, but Noah become the 8th, right? And Moses also was a Melchizedek, right? Now we have all those names that's being mentioned in the Bible. For instance, Jethro, okay, was a priest, and Balaam also that's mentioned in many places in the Bible, right? When the Israelites, came out of Egypt, he was trying to curse them out, for Balak, right, for money, right? He was a righteous man, but turned away from his righteous way just for money, right? And that's right. It's being mentioned also in Revelation, right? But it was supposed to be Melchizedek, but it turned away from it, right? So these are the places that we know that's among others, okay? That's that was hidden for the past I would say 1500 years or something like that, right? and that was the message that was supposed to come to us. But instead they were trying to tell us about the Levitical priesthood, which, because they're trying to build the second temple, right? So they were trying to make us think like the Levitical priesthood is still valid, which they're gonna build according to Revelation, right? But this is not the time to talk about the second and the third temple, the building of the third temple. It will happen, but this is not the time. But remember, the reason why I'm saying this is because I know those who are trying to teach us, right, mention all the time the Levitical priesthood that we are under, okay, that Yeshua came and died for us, and now we don't have to, to make any sacrifice anymore. But they didn't go into details, what was entailed. Yes, we're supposed to be now the thing that was lost, the king and priest, that the covenant that God had with us in Exodus chapter 19, verse 1, 6, and verse 5 and 6, right? That's being restored now according to Yeshua, and according to Hebrew, according to Peter, and according to all these people that I just mentioned, all the places that I mentioned who understood Melchizedek. This is what we are under. May God bless you and bless your understanding, and then so you would understand what Melchizedek is. And then if you have any question, if you have any comment, please, you can write me, and my email address is king and priest, right? 60 is king and priest 70 king and priest 70 at gmail.com. king and priest 70 at gmail.com, right? So very soon I'm going to provide a phone number, so some of you can call, if you're in this area, in New York area or in the US. Now long distance is not a big deal anymore, okay? So if you want to call me, and we can discuss whatever question you may have about the subject of Melchizedek. May Jehovah bless you. Thank you.